You saw yesterday the arrest that happened in Minnesota for those agitators that stormed the church. And people said, what about Don Lemon? Well, a judge has ruled shutting down the option of arresting Don Lemon. We'll get to that. But you know who seems really upset about that? Don Lemon. Don Lemon seems upset about that. He goes on his podcast and it's like, I know this isn't the end for me. Bring it on. And he says the quote, make me the new Jimmy Kimmel, which just feels like you're begging. You're begging for some attention, for some relevancy, Don Lemon, because it's the first time your name has been in the news in how many years?
I stand proud and I stand tall. This is not a victory lap for me because it's not over. They're going to try again and they're going to try again. And guess what? Here I am. Keep trying. That's not going to stop me from being a journalist. You're not going to diminish my voice. Go ahead, make me into the new Jimmy Kimmel if you want. Because I'm not going anywhere and I'm going to believe the same things, whether you want to, whatever. None of this is about justice. This is about power and it's about people who are incompetent.
And that is Don Lemon, again, goes out there, makes this big statement. Look, I'm proud of what I did. That's fine. He can be proud of what he wants, but he's not going to take a victory lap because, gosh, he can't, let it get out of the news cycle.
Well, remember, he was the one that also, in that interview where he said the church deserved it because they're a bunch of white supremacists, said, I don't know why this is all about me. Why is it all about me? Oh, because I'm the biggest name there. I was the biggest name there. From the beginning, it's been all about him.
He's saying, go ahead, media. Go ahead, Trump administration. Make me the new Jimmy Kimmel. That's exactly what he wants. I think when they show their cards so easily, just saying, please keep me relevant. Keep me in the news. It's all I want. It's not about creating news. It's not about covering news. It's about making myself the news. It's really disheartening, but also not unexpected. This has been Don Lemon's character for a while. You can go back to why he was even removed from CNN in the first place. This is an ego-driven moment. I say it not even loosely. When he went into that church and essentially, hounded the pastor and told the pastor that, these people are just exercising their First Amendment right, their freedom of speech. It shows how profoundly he does not know how the law works and how a lot of great commentators have a teleprompter in front of them, are really good at doing that, but haven't taken the time to actually learn the laws of the land.
Here's what really frustrates me about this whole thing, too, with him trying to say, make me the next Jimmy Kimmel.
Please.
Right. Here's the difference. Jimmy Kimmel made a statement that was in poor taste in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and his company put him on suspension based off of his statement. And now he's back on air. Don Lemon was fired from CNN for a host of reasons. Not this. He's been trying to make himself relevant for a long time. But he went inside the church where there was violations of the law. 3 people have already been arrested for that, for various crimes, not just violation of the FACE Act. He himself was getting in the face of the pastor when the pastor was still trying to get people out of the church. It wasn't like he said, Pastor, can I get an interview with you over here now that everything is calmed down? It was in the middle of it while the pastor was trying to take care of people that were frightened. And the pastor even says, I need to go take care of my flock. But that's where, as you even mentioned, he says the misunderstanding of the Constitution by saying, well, people are doing their freedom of speech and right to assemble in your church service, as if that's how that works. But the two analogies aren't analogous. They are completely different. Jimmy Kimmel was removed from air, suspended briefly for a comment. This is going
by
in.
The way, went on the air and apologized crying in tears. Now, whether that was legitimate or not, I think we can now look at time may tell otherwise. But at least in that moment, not only did he have to be suspended from air, he went on and a pretty big mea culpa and was visibly crying, apologizing for what he had to say. Whether that was the network making him or not to keep his job, time will tell. But in that moment, that's what he had to do. He didn't go on there and say, I believe what I believe. I can say whatever I want to say. He actually went on and did quite the opposite in that moment and said, we made a mistake.
Well as they weren't trying to pursue criminal charges against Jimmy Kimmel. No. This is a completely different circumstance. He's trying to elevate his status even though I think people watching our show wouldn't say Jimmy Kimmel has that high of a status, he does have a television broadcast on broadcast.
Still, there's a couple million people watching him.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is someone who has become irrelevant. And even the stuff he was saying afterwards, filming the child that was being comforted by the kid's father and saying, oh, look, they're uncomfortable. I bet there's some trauma. That's the point. He was
that's where
engaged in this. It wasn't just reporting on it. He was a part of it.
Yeah, I lost all sympathy or care or journalistic respect for Don Lemon in that moment, where you are celebrating the traumatization of children who are just going to their church service, kids that probably had no choice whether to be there or not, certainly didn't understand what was going on. And these are kids that are living in a time where it's not necessarily safe to be in their own school, certainly not safe to necessarily be in their own church. And now they're experiencing firsthand, instead of going, oh man, that's really upsetting that this has to happen. He's going, look at that kid over there who is traumatized. But that's the point.
This guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. And I imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery. Not kidding. That's what protesting is about. And so
he says, to take away all of his talk about the snow being very slippery in the ice, he said it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that is really what protesting is about. That is a moment that, again, I lost all feelings towards Don Lemon in terms of any sort of at least journalistic respect. Not that I had much to begin with. He's been rude and obnoxious for years and years and years. But in that moment, you start doing this to children. Yeah, you got no love from me. All right, let's take some phone calls. Let's go to Tim, who's calling in the great state of Tennessee. Tim, go ahead.
2 questions real quick. One, at what point does John Lemon actually exceed the ruling of being a journalist and then being someone could be prosecuted? And 2, if he's not affiliated with any organization, a news organization, can he still claim that he's a journalist?
Yeah, I think you can claim independent journalist. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Look, there are a lot of people who do that, do it really well, especially in new media. When it comes to where that line is, I think it's a blurry, and it's also slippery slope. You got to be careful. But when he was part of the mob invading, knowing the plans, going in there with them, and then intimidating people, I think that's where probably the line is. However, a judge ruled the other way.
Well, and once again, this is a magistrate judge. This isn't a judge that is appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Magistrate judges are appointed by the district court judges to handle pretrial motions and things of that nature. So the magistrate judge did not sign off on what the charges that were being brought by the Justice Department. The Justice Department has said they are looking at other avenues. But Tim, to your point as well, you can do journalism without being a part of the New York Times or Fox News or a big organization. The First Amendment doesn't say freedom of the press, and here is the definition of what that is. But it also doesn't give you a get out of jail free card if you violate the law. That is why when you have the protection of a larger organization that has attorneys that are telling you, hey, you know what? That actually is going too far. Protecting sources. You cannot go out and solicit someone to break the law for you and give you information. But if you receive it from someone who brings it to you, that's different. Like there are levels of protection, yes, as the press, but it's not protection from you violating the law. That is the big difference here. And where Don Lemon is trying to say, I was just a journalist documenting, reporting on, no, he was engaged in it. And I think that's also where the hypocrisy that we have seen is how aggressively they went after people that claimed that defense on January 6th. And you have to be able to look at them in context in the cases, but you can't, someone like Don Lemon, 100% say, me going in, trespassing, engaging in this, supporting it, saying it was because it is a white supremacist church, and then also try to say, I was just documenting it, I was just being a journalist. No, he was being an advocate and a participant who had a camera crew with him. And that is the difference here. And I'm surprised to some degree that the magistrate judge did not sign off on this arrest warrant, but I don't think the Justice Department is done here.